Hello everyone, Molton here. Welcome back to the continuation of our speedrun series. And if you're just joining us during this series, then it's basically a series where I play through a bunch of rapid games, going from beginner to Grandmaster level, talking you through the moves and playing through the analysis afterwards to see where we can improve on. So in this position, we'll go move pawn to d4, and we reach this French defense position. Now there's a lot of different lines we can play, but for this particular speedrun we'll try to stick with our main Gambit repertoire, and our main Gambit option against the French defense is this sort of Milner Barry idea where we go bishop to d3 and sacrifice this pawn on d4. So we go c3. So here our opponent has many different options, but the main one in the French defense is to put pressure on this d4 pawn. So I'm expecting in most cases our opponents are going to be playing the move knight to c6, queen to b6, and at some point maybe maneuvering this knight into the f5 square, which is typical play here for black. So yeah, we get this move knight to c6, we play the move bishop to d3 here, and our idea is that if black takes this pawn, it looks like he has a lot more attackers than us, but at the end of the whole variation, like if he keeps taking, then we actually have this nasty check on b5 of our bishop, which would actually pick up the queen on d4. That's why our opponent played the move bishop to d7, but here we can castle anyway. We also have this option of taking this pawn on c5, but we're going to castle because our repertoire involves sacrificing a pawn here. Okay, so our opponent takes on d4, and here in this position we play the move rook to e1, just ignoring this pawn on d4. The idea is that if black captures on c3, we'll recapture with the knight and we will get some extra piece development here. So knight takes c3. Bishop to b4. Okay, so maybe black is threatening to play the move pawn to d4 next move to sort of chase away our knight. Also, this bishop is quite a useful piece, so in a lot of positions, if you can win the bishop, then you have fantastic compensation most of the time. We also want to be looking for moves which sort of develop our pieces with tempo and keep black under pressure. So I'm thinking bishop to e3 here is one possible continuation. We could also just continue developing our pieces, say bishop to f4. If bishop to e3, my main concern is if black plays the move pawn to d4. But if pawn to d4, I wonder if we can play the move knight takes d4. And then if knight takes d4, we have this very, very typical idea in a lot of these French variations where we just swing our queen across to g4, and this would not only hit the knight on d4, it would also hit this pawn on g7. So I'm just going to continue with bishop to e3. This is a very normal way of just continuing to develop your pieces. Again, we're not afraid of d4 because I'm going to sacrifice the knight, and this pin is going to be very, very difficult for black to get rid of. So let's see how black responds to this bishop to e3 move. Now if he moves the queen back to c7, then we have the move knight to b5, which can be very, very annoying for him because that's extra tempo that he has to lose moving the queen again. So he opts for this queen to a5 move. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, now it gets quite interesting because we have a few very tempting options here for white to continue our attack. We do have the move pawn to a3 just to allow black to capture. We capture back, and then if black captures this pawn, then maybe we can try to make use of the fact that the queen's a little bit misplaced in this square. Also, we get the bishop pair. Maybe we can play rook c1 followed by bishop c5, maybe post the bishop on this d6 square. That could be a pleasant option. Of course, your opponent's never forced to capture anything you give them, so even if he does take here, he's not really forced to take with the queen, so it might not be as good if our opponent doesn't capture there. What else do we have here? We have maybe the option of playing knight to b5. Now this one looks like it involves sacrificing a lot of material. So what happens after knight to b5 is that if black captures the rook, do we have this idea of knight to d6 check, an in-between move, which sacrifices the rook temporarily, but we get our knight into this square. Whether it's enough, I'm not exactly sure. So after knight check, the king can't go to d8 because of obviously this fork, and if the king goes to e7 or d8 or f8, then I wonder if we can throw in some in-between move there, like knight takes b7. Probably not actually, because I mean queen c7, and it looks like black is fine. So yeah, so this knight b5 move is tempting, but I'm not sure if this is the correct response. What else is there? There's rook c1, just developing the rook. Threatening a3 takes, rook takes, followed by maybe b4 to attack the queen. This looks very promising as well. So since I don't really see anything after knight to b5 and it looks a little bit speculative, I'm just going to keep things simple for now. I'm just going to play rook c1, threaten a3. I mean, if we get the bishop pair, we follow through b4, b5, bishop c5 ideas. It looks like we have a very, very good compensation here. And I wasn't particularly afraid either of bishop takes and queen takes a2, because I thought that we get quite decent amount of compensation, and also the queen looks like it's a little bit misplaced. Probably we play like rook a3, rook b3, maybe capture this pawn, but I wasn't too worried. So he hasn't gone for it, so we'll continue with our plan of a3 and then b4. Also, mind you, if he castles here, there's a tactic which is quite common in these positions whenever your opponent has a knight on e7, and I'll actually try and let you work it out, see if you can work out what the possible tactic might be in this position. I'm not sure if it works, but just from a glance, it looks like it could possibly work. I could also throw in b4 before I play this tactic as well. That would also be probably a good idea. But I'm thinking of this Greek gift with bishop takes h7. So if you spotted that, can be a very nice tactic. After knight to g5, the rook goes back, and then I swing the queen across to this square on h5. But I'm thinking we throw in the move pawn to b4 first, because it doesn't look like it should hurt our position much. So I'm just going to play b4 first, and then I'm thinking about this Greek gift. Okay, this move looks like it just blunders, because I can just play the move pawn to b4, and then the knight will be hanging afterwards. So this should be winning for me. I'm pretty sure this is winning if I just play the move pawn to b5. Sure what my opponent's idea is. Maybe it's to bring the queen back to a5. So I can also sacrifice my bishop and go for this. They're both very, very tempting options. But I think the easiest solution here is just to play the move pawn to b5. So we go for the piece here. Yeah, also even after queen a5, we can just capture the knight, and then if black captures the rook, we can also capture the bishop. So worst case scenario, we can get our piece advantage there, but I think he might have a better move here than just taking the knight. So I'm actually thinking about just protecting the rook, because we still have the double threat, remember, of sacking on h7 whenever we like. So instead of capturing this knight right away, which is going to lead to a position which, I mean, should be favorable for white, but I mean, black is capturing a lot of pawns. Our a pawn is probably going to drop. Our d pawn is most likely going to drop at some point. So I'm just going to play the move bishop to d2 here. So I'm just defending the rook, and I have the threat of just capturing on h7 as well as capturing on c6. As well as, I mean, possible discoveries with the rook as well. So there's just a lot of threats here which black has to deal with. Yeah, so now I'm going to go for the sacrifice. So go bishop takes h7. King takes, knight to g5 check. Looks incredibly strong, and now the fact that I even have this bishop lined up on the queen means I'm free to move my rook with a lot of discoveries. So I'm just going to continue on with the move knight to g5. My opponent didn't capture the bishop, so now I'm threatening to bring the rook across to h3, attack the queen, and the queen is also coming to h5 next, so this should be game over, I think. Yeah, so queen b5. So now queen h5 or rook h3 probably doesn't matter, but I think queen h5 looks like the stronger option. Yeah, there's just no defense here for black at all. There's no moves. No matter what black plays, I just move my bishop somewhere, followed by, if I may. Okay, so just jumping into the analysis now. We'll have a quick look at that. Yeah, so the trap I was talking about was a very common one here. If black captures with all the pieces, then white has this really nasty discovered check on b5, and then we pick up the queen. So that's why black plays this move bishop to d7 to prevent that. And then after castles takes, so you can capture back, this is a line, but the repertoire recommended was involving this new move rook to e1. After the move rook to e1, black decided to capture again. Of course, if black goes for other moves such as knight e7, these are things I also covered. I suggest you can go check out the video on the Milner Barry, which I did, which covers some ideas such as h4 and so on in these positions. But here, after black captured, I went knight takes, bishop to b4, and here a very common way to continue to develop your pieces is to play the move bishop to e3. So it's very important that you continue development with tempo, because our opponent is a little bit behind in development at the moment. After move bishop e3, the idea is that if black tries to go for the move pawn to d4, which looks like it picks up a piece, we can actually play the move knight takes d4 here. And if knight takes, we have a very nice continuation, queen to g4, hitting this knight and hitting this pawn on g7, and white will be able to pick up some material afterwards. Now, after queen a5, we continue rook c1, which is perfectly fine. And here black sort of voluntarily gave up the bishop, and I thought the idea was to capture this pawn on a2, but after this move I think white has more than sufficient compensation. One idea was just to win the pawn back with rook a3, queen takes b2, and then maybe just rook b3 and then pick up the pawn on b7, which should give us sufficient counterplay here as white. But after bishop takes and then pawn to a3, I feel like here white is doing very well. Castle's b4. Black definitely needed to play queen d8 here, but then the issue is this bishop takes h7 Greek gift idea. And after king takes, knight to g5 check. This is actually probably even leading to mate, because after king g8, queen h5, we have queen h7 coming up. And if king to g6, then, well, probably because we already have the rook on the third rank, we can just swing the rook across. So maybe spend a tempo with the bishop. You could probably even play this very speculative looking move, bishop to b6, which actually again wins a tempo by attacking the queen. And if the queen captures, you can actually use that tempo to swing the rook across. Maybe even to h3 is what the engine is giving here, and it's actually saying mate in 4, which is very interesting. So the threat is just queen h5, and apparently after rook h8 there's an amazing move here for white, which is knight h7, and the threat is just queen to h5 mate, and also queen to g4 is mate. So there's no way for black to escape all the checkmating threats. That's a very nice move, knight to h7, and the only way for black here to survive is to start giving up a lot of pieces. So that would be a very nice way to finish the game. The game continued here, and then after b5, yeah, now white is clearly winning. Bishop d2 is a nice sort of intermezzo move instead of going for pawn takes c6. So even if you see a good move, try to see if you can spot a much more convincing way to finish the game off. And yeah, here the rest, white continues with a mating attack. So I hope you guys enjoyed this game against the French, and yeah, hope you enjoyed this line. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next speedrun.